So as you recall, this machine, I got to bring my Coke with me. This machine here was picked up, was mid-February. It had a Windows boot device that was inaccessible. And that happened because the BIOS had reset itself and it was in IDE mode instead of RAID mode, I think, or SATA mode. It wouldn't have been RAID mode because the RAID is for storage only. There's a little SSD here. So the BIOS, when it had reset, changed the IDE mode. For whatever reason, this machine's that old that it defaulted to IDE mode instead of SATA mode, or regular SATA mode versus AHCI, something along those lines. Anyway, after I reset it and it was working, I thought, well, that was easy. Then I realized that the RAID array was dying, the fans weren't spinning right. I got the side fan working again. I lubricated the side fan. That's all working good. Actually, a friend of mine did it. I didn't think he could fix it, and he proved me wrong. He actually lubricated the fan and brought it back to life. It's a $25 custom fan that goes on the panel, and I'll show you when we put the panel back on. And I told the customer, you know, it's a $5 fan. It's $25 because it has this proprietary connector down here that when you close the panel, it makes connection with this little circuit board down here, which powers the fan. So there's no plug to physically unplug. It's just metal hitting metal here. That's how it gets power. Because of that connector, it's a proprietary fan. I could buy just a generic fan that's that size and then solder the wires on, but my time is worth more than $25. So I told the customer, you're going to have to replace it. Anyway, we got that working, and I got the data pulled off of the failing RAID array, and the machine then, after a couple of reboots, the BIOS reset again, and it was right back to inaccessible boot device. So I changed the battery on the motherboard. You see that in the previous videos. And I don't know why the board is doing that. I don't know if it's because the RAID array is failing and one of the drives is shorting out through the controller and that's causing the board to reset. If it's the age of the board, something in the board is bad, I don't know. And the only way to know is to apply the fix you think is going to work and then test it, reboot it, and use the machine. And it's very time consuming. So my preference is to do a proper repair and have the customer buy new updated parts, let me fix it, rebuild it, put it in a better case, put a better power supply, more up-to-date CPU, faster SSD. This is just SATA 2 instead of SATA 3. Let's dump the RAID, go with one big SSD. If this SSD is like 250 gigs and these three drives are 250 apiece, running in RAID 0, that gives them 750 plus 250, that's a total of 1 terabyte total. Well, we could get a 1 terabyte SSD for $350, and it'll be faster than both the RAID 0 and the current SSD probably put together. It'd still be faster. So that's really what I wanted to do for the client. And the other option was to just build them a brand new computer. Let's just start from scratch and build something equivalent modern day to what this was back when it was new. And the client said, okay, I think it became an issue of too much information to the client. Consumers often suffer something called paralyzation through analyzation. This is what happens when you give a customer too many choices. They cannot make a decision. One of the best examples of this is if you go to Costco. When you go to Costco and you want to buy aspirin, you can only buy one bottle of aspirin. Well, you can buy more than one, but you only have a choice of one bottle. It's Advil, and it's like 500 tablets or whatever, and that's it. There is no other aspirin to choose from. No other sizes, no other brands. That's it. Buy it or don't buy it. And Costco believes that that creates less stress on the consumer. They have to make there's less decision to be made. And their business is doing quite well. There was a business that was open a few years back called Incredible Universe that was a part of Radio Shack. And they would, instead of having 10 or 15 televisions, they would have 70, 80 televisions to give the consumer choice. Incredible Universe isn't around anymore. Consumers were given so much choice that they couldn't make a decision and often didn't and left without buying anything. So, again, it's just part of the culture that we live in here in America anyway. I can't speak for how it works in other countries, but that's how it works here. So So the first thing I want to do, I think, is let's get this CPU cleaned up, and let's get the heatsink put back on it and put some fresh thermal compound on there, which gives me a good reason to come back here. And I got my Q-tips and my denatured alcohol. And this is not rocket science. It's a pretty basic thing to do. It's pretty easy. I generally wipe off all the old thermal compound with a paper towel or something. No sense wasting a bunch of Q-tips on that. And then we can get rid of the remnants, any oils, dust, dirt, just by rubbing this denatured alcohol. You can use rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. The higher the alcohol content, the better. You want it as pure as possible. And it will evaporate. You see I'm wiping it down, but it's mostly to wipe off the little pieces of thermal material that are still there. And it just evaporates, so you don't have to worry about any liquid damage, because it's a very high alcohol content. It just evaporates. Then I want to do the same thing on the bottom of the heatsink. So here I've got the, this isn't a stock Intel heatsink. Oh, here's one of those fans I was talking about earlier. Although this fan, this was an extra fan I took out. It's not needed. And it's got a standard 3-pin connector on the end. Unlike this fan, which has the opposite little circuit board thingy on the bottom of the case that connects directly to the fan cable for the side panel fan. All right, so I was cleaning this, wasn't I? Let's do the bottom of this heatsink. Let's get that nice and clean. So once again, just you'll see I'm dipping the Q-tip into the denatured alcohol, and I'm trying to get the edges clean as well. And you'll see that Q-tip coming out pretty dirty. Even though that looks pretty clean, once you hit it with the Q-tip, you'd be surprised how much your eyes can't see until you start cleaning it. It's a little deceptive sometimes. And so the only way you can really know if it's clean, a visual inspection, if you want your thermal compound to run as effectively and as efficiently as possible, the only way you'll know if it's clean is to do this. And you can even repeat this process, depending on how OCD you are, over and over and over again until that Q-tip, a wet Q-tip, comes out clean. But I'm not going to take it to that level. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be better than it was. So you see it should have like a shiny mirror finish on the bottom, and you want to avoid touching that, obviously, or it just defeats the purpose of what you just did. And let me just get this out of the way. That's all it takes, just a little bit of denatured alcohol or rubbing alcohol, and just 1 or 2, 3 or 4 Q-tips, whatever it takes to get it cleaned up. Let me go grab some thermal compound. I thought I was ready, and I'm just realizing I left that in the back. So let me go back here, and I can still talk to you because I'm on a wireless microphone here. And in one of these drawers here, I've got, here's some, I got some thermal compound that's left over from a Hyper 212 I installed a couple weeks ago. So I'll just use that thermal compound. A lot of people are really passionate about their thermal compound. The reality is, ultimately, it doesn't matter what kind of thermal compound you use as long as you use it. So people that use Arctic Silver versus some other thing, if you actually run the testing yourself and look at your temperatures, if you see more than a 3 °C variance, then you know something I don't know. And the reason you can see up to 3 °C variance is simply because the room temperature that you're in is going to change. So just for giggles, take a thermal compound, like let's say I take this one, apply it, run the computer really hard and measure my maximum temp. Then shut the computer off, wait an hour, turn it back on, do the same thing again. You're not going to see the same temp because your room temperature will have changed, even though you didn't change the thermal compound. So a lot of the testing that you see on thermal compounds isn't done accurately. It's not done properly. So if you look at websites that do thermal compound reviews, if you see a variance of less than 3 degrees Celsius, they're effectively 100% the same. So what I'm saying is you don't need to spend a lot of money on an expensive thermal compound when a cheap thermal compound will do the job equally as well. Unless you're one of those people that thinks 3 degrees Celsius matters. And you know what? If you are, that's fine too. I mean, that's your stress. When you run a business, you just don't have time for that kind of stuff. You want to take care of your customers, and customers that care that much about cooling aren't going to be coming to you for help. They're going to be fixing their own stuff. So when I apply thermal compound, you see I'm using a piece of Scotch tape, and I'm painting the thermal compound across the face of the CPU heat spreader there. And I just want a nice thick coat of paint. I don't want to be able to see through it. Just like any other type of painting, you wouldn't want to see the layer of paint behind it. And that gives us 100% coverage. As I mentioned in yesterday's video, the problem with using the P method or the other methods that people often promote on the internet is you can't see. So if I put a little grain-sized, dab of thermal compound in and I squish the heatsink on top of it, I have no way to know how much of the CPU I've covered unless I put too much on, in which case I'll know when it oozes out the sides and it's really hard to clean up. So this way I've got a nice even coverage across the entire surface of the CPU that I know isn't going to leak out, and I know there's no spots that are bare. And this is how I've done it for 25 years, and obviously if that didn't work, I wouldn't have a business anymore. But ultimately, do whatever method you're most comfortable with. I have no stake in your computer, so if you're more comfortable applying your thermal compound in another way, do it. I'm not telling you not to, just showing you the way I do it. Don't take it personally. And you can tell how beat up I've been by trolls by how much I have to back up everything that I say to try and prevent that whole thing from starting over again. So I've just got the back plate here. I'm going to put that on back here. Let's see if I can turn this around a little bit more so you can show you guys what's going on here. Just like that. That looks good. Looking in the comments, people are asking about toothpaste. Toothpaste will work as a thermal compound temporarily. So will mayonnaise, so will a lot of liquids. In fact, you'll often find that those liquids actually work better than thermal interface material. The problem is they dry really quickly. So toothpaste may only last about 2 or 3 days before it becomes dry and brittle and just falls off. Same with mayonnaise, and it'll start to smell really bad. But yes, you can Google search this, and there are people that have done the tests so that you don't have to, that show you the thermal properties of different materials compared to the proper thermal material. The difference is the proper thermal material is meant to last for years and years and years. The other materials they're sort of to prove a point that apart from the fact that they dry out really quickly, they do work oftentimes better in that couple days before they dry out than the stuff that's designed to do that. So there's a balance that's taking place between the thermal material remaining viscous and also being able to transfer heat. And there's a balance that takes place because clearly other materials transfer heat better, but they don't stay viscous. So there you have that. So yes, it is possible to use other material like toothpaste, but don't expect it to last very long. It's a fun experiment, though. Nothing is better than experience when it comes to a lot of this stuff, so that you can talk with confidence, not, well, because I saw a YouTube video and a guy did it that way. When you do it yourself and you know the results, nobody can tell you you're wrong. Nobody can deny your experience. So I'm just looking here how am I going to put this on? I guess it's going to go on like this. Let's see. I think I am going to set this down because, well, you know what? That probably isn't going to work because I'm going to lose that back plate as I just heard it fall. There it is. And this is a hard thing for me to do and film at the same time. And I'm afraid if I set it down, yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to set it down. I'll just have to hold the back plate on. Oh, and it's heavy. Heavy, heavy, heavy. Okay. There we go. There we go. Maybe you guys will be able to see a little better too. I mean, you're not going to be able to see in, but you can at least get a better idea of what I'm doing than just by staring at my back, right? And one of these days I'll get a cameraman who'll be able to move that camera around, so in the future we won't have this problem, but until then, I'm going to have to deal with what I got. There we go. All right, so this fan is going to go on this way. Yes. Just like that. And let me grab my screwdriver. I don't really want to use my electric one, but I'm going to anyway. How did I get to these screws before? I just want to get these started. I don't want to tighten them down with the electric screwdriver because it's very easy to rip the head of the screw right off from the power of the electric screwdriver. But they're on a weird angle, and I'm trying to remember if I took something else off to give me better access. I can't remember. It's been such a long time. Oh, that looks good. All right, let me get my regular screwdriver out. Or did I already take it out? Yeah, I already took it out. Okay. Feel like I'm doing this the hard way. Oh, all right, there's a hole straight down through here that I use. That explains that mystery. There we go. So that we should be able to get through there. Something's not lining up properly. There it is. Okay, this is a lot better. Something isn't right. I think this cover comes off. Yeah, it does. That makes it a lot easier to get to those screws. Still not lined up properly. Says it's lined up. There it goes, finally. Now I can tighten these all down. So I always want to do opposite corners. There we go. Finally, this one. Okay, that's good. And I'm just going to plug the CPU power cable on, and I'll pick this up and show you what I just did. So if we bring this back up. There we go. So what I'm looking at here is there's these two holes that allow me to get down into those screws. There's one there, there's one there, and then there's one right here by the edge of the fan that takes me right to the edge. Just like so, here and here. And that's all secured, and then our fan cable's plugged in, and now I can put this little fan shield back on. And it looks like that just goes on, let's see, just like this, I think. There's one side. Well, maybe I've got it. Maybe it'll be easier if I go the other way around. Something's not sitting right. Just flip it the other way. Maybe that'll make a difference. That definitely isn't right. It's definitely got to go this way. Oh, that's better. Much better. It's not a perfect fit, but I guess that's how it works. It's supposed to sit in that groove. It doesn't want to sit in there. When I get it in one side, the bottom side comes out. The bottom's in, and now the top's sticking out. I don't really think it's that important. As long as it's not going to fly off, I think we're going to be okay. Interesting. I would guess that this actually is bent. That's what it seems like. It's not in the right shape. Let's try it again. Yeah, that was the problem. Good. So that's done. Now I want to take out this this RAID array. It's just These drives are all very old. On the previous video, I showed you the smart status on these, the crystal disk info, that these drives were all failing. One of them, I think it was completely dead. And how I was able to recover the data was just pure luck. And the customer, unfortunately, because his SSD was running out of room, he relocated his desktop folder to the RAID array drive, which means that when Windows tries to boot without the RAID array hooked up, it's missing a bunch of files it needs for the desktop, and you just get a blank, empty desktop. None of his icons are there. His wallpaper's not there. It's all because he moved it. That's a really bad thing. I don't suggest you move any Windows system files to another drive. Unless, of course, you know exactly what you're doing and you're making regular backups, which most people are not doing. We've got a bunch of cables we're not going to need anymore, so let's start by removing some of these, because I'm not going to put another RAID array in there. Okay, so that's our main drive. And then this is our optical drive, and what's this other one? The other one goes to, oh, he's got an eSATA port up on here, so that's what the third one goes to. I think I'm going to go ahead and pull this power supply out and see what we're working with under here. It's bugging me. Cables are getting in my way. I got to take it out anyway. I'd rather do that now. Not to mention it's installed upside down. I think I see what the problem is. It looks like there's a bracket here that can be moved, and somebody was too lazy to move it from the looks of things here. Let me just get this disconnected. Yeah, there's the bracket right there. It's only got one screw in it. It's supposed to have two. Maybe.
lifetimes of significance.
The spirit.
Check. 1, 2. All right, we should have audio again. Sorry about that. Batteries died on the wireless mic, so hopefully you can hear me again. So you can see the inside now, what it looks a little differently now than when we started. Okay, yeah, sorry the sound went out. Again, the batteries went out on the mic pack. I wasn't aware of that because I'm trying to fix the computer and my back was to you, obviously. So essentially, just hooking as you watched, you really didn't need to hear me. I've got the drive trays back in, got the CPU fan hooked up, and the new drive is installed. The old failing drives are removed. There's a 1 terabyte drive. It's got all the data that was on these 3 drives copied over to it. These are all failing. They need to be destroyed, recycled. And now I have to hook up, let's see, this is still tangled up. I have to hook up the front port umbilicals. So let me go ahead and run that through here. Push that through. Just talking about the case doesn't really have any good wire management, none at all. If you look around the back as I spin it around, there is just no room for cables to go back here. The only place for cables is in this section right here, and even just this one motherboard power cable just barely reaches back there. And I think I actually routed it that way, so now I'm not even sure that that back cover is going to go on with the cable routed in the back. We'll find out soon enough. But yeah, I had to take the video card out to make room for that power supply bracket. So that's got to go back in. But for right now, I like the open space to work in. Interesting that, you know, this guy chose this route to take the motherboard CPU power rather than run around behind. And again, I think it's because there's just no room back here. If you run the cable behind, you may not be able to get it to fit. That's what it looks like to me. I'm not sure. I mean, just that one cable may prevent this back cover from going on. So I don't want to run any more back there. I'll just leave it the way it is. I don't like it, but it's a limitation of this case. Yeah, I suspect even if I were to attempt to run that back there, I wouldn't have enough cable left. I don't know, let's find, let's try it, see what happens. What the heck, it's really bugging me. Disconnect this for a moment. I just don't think it's going to reach. Well, I know it didn't reach before with the power supply installed upside down because then the cables came out the opposite side. This might just work. There's no hole to bring it through. There's just the top of the motherboard, which is not, that's not ideal. Not good at all. See, there's no hole in this case to come around the board. There's a hole up here for some weird reason. So for this to even be able to go up that, up into this corner from behind, it looks like the cover would go on okay. I really do not approve of that. And it's a tight fit. Yeah. It's bad one way and it's bad the other way. There's just no good option here other than keep it the way it was. Too bad. Again, another reason I wanted to, part of the repair was to change this case out to go with something much more modern, much more in tune to the level of money that was spent on this machine. This was probably somewhere around 10 grand when it was purchased brand new. And to think that this was considered worth 10 grand is, shows you how far we've come, really. Get that stuff out of the way. This should be hard drive LED, and it is. Which should be this one. And power should be above that. Nothing is marked positive or negative on this at all. So I'm going to guess. And if the power LED doesn't work, then I probably put it on upside down. And we have reset and power left, and I'm not sure which is which on this motherboard. I think it's labeled. I gotta get some magnifying readers out to read it though, because it's really small. Let's see. Oh, I'm glad I read it because I would have done it the other way. So power switch goes next. I think I want to do it this way. Let's go around like this. That's power. And then there's reset. And that's going to go. There's a 4-pin speaker here. That's why you can't see what I'm doing. That's why I can't see what I'm doing. You guys probably still can't see. There's the reset right there. I just want to get all these cables back around here. In fact, let me pull the slack. Gives me a cleaner work area that way. And then let me reroute this one as well. Let's reroute it back around here. I'm going to have to do it later. Might as well do it now. That should be right. Okay. And then once again, I can pull the slack through. So that doesn't look near as nasty. Nope, still didn't run it right. It's still cut up around this one. Let's bring it around. There we go. One more time. Third time's a charm. Hard drive LED. Power LED. Okay. Get that around. Pull these cables through. Looks good. I'm not worried about hooking up any USB things just yet. Let's go ahead and get the video card back in. That's weird. It's got a weird sticky cover. I don't know. That's weird. Oh well. It can be sticky. I gotta plug this fan back in, or otherwise I'll never be able to get to it. Okay. Yeah, that's gotta go around it like this. Hold that cable up against the edge for me, and then that cable can fit right in that little groove right there. Cool, that's interesting. The card won't go back in with the fan here. The fan, this fan right here is preventing the card from sitting flush. So that's not a good design. Let's go ahead and disconnect that for right now. I could lower it one. It says both the first two are 16-speed slots. If I lower it down one, then I can have the fan there. So let's try that and see if that works any better. Put that back on. There it is. So if we go into this one instead, that should give us the room we need. This can go outside of there. There we go. Usually on most cases, the first PCI Express slot, on most modern motherboards rather, would just be a ×1 slot. So the video card normally drops one down. This one you could actually install it up on the top, but if we put it up there, it's going to get real close to the heat generation from the CPU. And then, like I said, this fan header won't be able to plug in. I'm sorry, the video card won't be able to plug into with the fan header here. It's keeping the video card from sitting as flush as it needs to sit. That little 4-pin speaker thing I can put back on here as well, since I've got those cables on and it was blocking my view before. And they've got the motherboard SATA connectors right up against those pins, which make it almost impossible to see what you're doing, because you got to be on all 4 pins. And when I just plugged it in, I noticed I was only on 3 of them. That looks better. Okay. Now let me secure the video card back into position. There we go. Looking good, looking good. Bring our power connector back in. That can go right there. And we can give power to, let's see, we got to power the optical drive, the hard drive, and the SSD. So down here on the floor, I've got some cables. And let's try and keep this on the bottom. Try and keep it clean. I don't think one is going to cut it. It looks like I'm going to need 2. Just trying to think what the best route's going to be. If I take it up here, Will I have any room for this one? I will, but not for both. Not unless I drop the DVD, bring it lower. But you know, this cabling is going to look terrible any way you slice it, so it'll still look better than the way it was. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize the end power cable because we're going right up against the floor of the case here. If I can move this out of the way, you can see what I'm doing. We don't really have a whole lot of room down here on the bottom, so I want to use the end connector. And then I can use, let's see, let's plug this data connector back in. And then any of these other ones, it doesn't matter which one you use, whatever's going to be not too tight, not too loose, I suppose. To go to the hard drive power, right there. There we go. And then finally, optical drive power. And I still have more cables left over than I started with. Let's see, this one has Molex connectors. What's that for? What takes Molex? I don't see anything that takes... Oh, you know what? There is a fan controller. And if we want the fan controller to work, we have to provide power to it. I don't think we're plugging anything into this fan controller, though. Oh, but we still have to provide power if he was going to still use the eSATA. So that's what the other power cable's for. Not worried about that for right now. Not a priority for me. And let's see, we'll go... What the heck, let's go above this one. There we go. And we'll just take it right up to the optical drive. Done. In theory, this thing should boot and it should work right now. This is power. So these are the fan headers right here. And we can use these fan headers to control these fans rather than plugging them into the board, right? So remember I mentioned this one. So that sort of becomes a non-issue then with moving the video card up if we want to move it up. I can just run that right out through there and plug it into any of these three. Doesn't matter which one you use. Do the same thing. That also makes the cable management look a little bit better by routing these cables out. So there is some cable management on this case, but it's very premature. It's very early incantation of cable management. All right, so that front one, that's going to power this connector down here where the front case fan's going to make a connection. We still have the USBs to install, which again, I'm not worried about for right now. So all of this can just quite literally hang loose. This I can just kind of straighten out until I get some hot melt glue. Make sure everything works before I do that. And then we can put the front cover back on. Starting to look like a computer again, isn't it? So this actually doesn't have an overhang. It lines up flush with the front bezel, but with the bezel off, it has this overhang. And I go to pick the computer up and the whole thing just broke right off. I don't think one of these tabs exists. No, all four of them are broken. No, wait a minute. That one's still okay. One tab out of four that still exists. All right. All right, well, we're about to find out if I know what I'm doing or not. Let's take all these extra screws. I'm going to put them all in here. This is just a little ramekin that I'm using to hold screws for right now. This fan we're not going to use. We're done with the thermal compound. I don't need these hard drives out. Let's go ahead and just set this stuff back here for right now. Get it out of my way. And let me grab my monitor. We can test fire this thing and see if it's going to work. I think it's going to work. What do you think? You think it's going to work? All right, guys, I have to go invisible here for a minute and steal the monitor that I'm using to monitor what you guys are seeing. So I have to go blind. All right, let's give that some power. That's good. Let's grab a keyboard and mouse. Put those over here. I need my wireless dongle, so I'll steal that from over here. I have to plug it in the back because I didn't hook any of the front USBs up. Remember that. The Q-tips and denatured alcohol, they can go back here to be put away. And these screws and fan can go back here to get put away as well. Okay, I think I'm organized. I think OCD's happy. Okay. Video, check. Keyboard, mouse, good. Need a power cable. You know, I just had to use this power cable yesterday and I put it away thinking I was done with it. And I was wrong. There it is. Power. Okay, well, here we go. Here goes nothing. Step around here and see where the power button is on this thing. Somewhere up here. There it is, power. Power light comes on. The hard drive LED there was blinking for a moment. How come I don't have any video? Okay, that's booting up like it should. I want to see the hard drive LED blink. Yep, that's blinking like it should. And hopefully his desktop icons will appear if I was able to copy all the data off properly with all the right permissions and everything for the desktop folder. Let me turn this light off so you guys can see the monitor better. In fact, turn a couple of lights off here. Bring it down. Bring the lighting down. CPU fans going. Video card fans turning. These two fans are not turning because I have not applied power to the fan controller yet. Remember, I haven't done that yet, so that's why you don't see these fans turning right here. And what's happening up here? Some kind of an error. The recycle bin is corrupted. Do you want to empty the recycle bin for this drive? Sure. You'll need to provide permission. This is the permissions I was talking about. So all of his icons are there. That looks good. Should be able to, let's see, go to the PC. So drive C has got 40 gigs out of 148, so it's about 150 gig SSD. The D drive is using 360 gigs of the terabyte that's available. There's our optical drive. And now it's redetected because the drive is new. Windows has reloaded the hard drive driver and it wants to reboot, which is good because I want to restart it anyway to make sure that that recycle bin error won't come up again. And of course the card reader is not hooked up yet. It seems like it's on an angle. Something's not seated right. This card reader's sunken in, so I'm going to take that out and fix that. And let's see how long this thing takes to boot. So here's the other thing. I gotta reset it. The RAID controller is still popping up, and I don't want to see that RAID controller anymore. So I want to go into the BIOS. I'm just going to hit delete over and over and over again. You'll see that AHCI does boot in RAID mode. It just says RAIDs detected 0, and then it continues on with the boot up process. But if we actually go into the BIOS and turn RAID off, since we've taken those RAID disks out, then this whole time you have to wait for that to take place, it'll basically make your boot time take less and increase the speed of your boot. Onboard devices configuration, Marvel storage controller, serial attached SCSI. I don't need SAS installed. We can disable that. Marvel storage controller has legacy RAID disabled, so we can leave that alone. Onboard controller for 1394. There should be. Should be in here somewhere. Just configure SATA as RAID. We're going to change that to AHCI. That's all I was looking for. And then save and exit. And now you shouldn't see that RAID configuration screen come up anymore. And again, there's a little delay that takes. That'll be gone now, so the boot up should be a little faster since that's one less step it has to do. So there's our beep. Here's our post. It's got 24, looks like 24 gigs of RAM in there. That already happened a lot faster. Remember, this is loading off an SSD, but it's an older generation SSD, so it's running on SATA 2, which is all the motherboard supports anyway, I think. Which was another reason I wanted to replace the motherboard, which also means replacing the RAM and the CPU, and also the case and the power supply. So what you're left with the 3 bad drives and an old SSD, you might as well rebuild the whole thing. There's no sense putting a fast SSD into a motherboard that only supports SATA 2. There's no sense leaving the SSD as SATA 2 when you put in a new motherboard that supports SATA 3. So this blue screen, this probably has happened because I disabled the other controller. I didn't think we needed it, but maybe we do. So let me go back in the BIOS and put that back. Just repeatedly hitting the delete key until I see the BIOS. Really don't have to hit it till it beeps. There we go, entering setup. I'll turn the SAS back on. SAS boot we don't need though. Now we'll exit and save. Let's see if it runs properly this time. If I still get the blue screen, it's because of the RAID change to AHCI. Sometimes that happens. Usually you can flip those back and forth without a problem. It's when you go back to IDE or SATA mode out of AHCI or into AHCI from how Windows was configured in SATA mode, you'll get that kind of a blue screen. And it's an easy fix anyway, so let's just see what happens, and I'll show you how I deal with it. It doesn't matter to me. If it boots, great, it's one less step I have to do. If it doesn't boot, I'm not like, oh no, what do I do next? It's, again, I think a lot of viewers have a lot of panic of things going wrong, and all these things can be fixed, whatever it is. Google is your friend for a lot of this stuff, and after you've been doing it as long as I have, it all becomes kind of second nature. You sort of vaguely remember how you fixed it the last time, and sometimes you just need a little assistance getting moved in the right direction, and that's what Google's good for. So we're right back to inaccessible boot device. That's the error. And let me just reboot it again. After a couple of boots, Windows 10 should give us a menu for booting here. Let's see what happens. And again, that's happened because I've taken it out of RAID mode and put it in AHCI mode. I definitely want it in AHCI. So here it's preparing automatic repair. And that was just through the third reboot. That's when it did that. It said the first two didn't work. Let me see if I can fix myself. So for the negative things people say about Windows 10, you can see Windows 10 does have a lot of features on it that are actually good despite all the complaints people have. You know, it's far from perfect, but it's certainly a lot easier to fix, in my experience, than Windows that has come before it. So we'll let that run here for a second. Automatic, your PC did not start correctly. To restart your PC, let's just hit restart and see what it does. Sometimes that's all you have to do. Even though it says it didn't fix anything, it may have. And this really gets down to be about time, right? That's the thing I'm trying to emphasize here when you're helping a customer, is how much is it going to cost the customer for your time, and would that money be better spent for your customer on newer hardware? Unless you're working for free, in which case all bets are off. All right, come on, you going to work for me this time? Just thinking about it. This is a good sign that it's taking longer, because that suggests to me that it's installing the right drivers. I spoke too soon. It was just taking a long time to make me hopeful. So once again, I'm going to show you this procedure again. We're going to reboot it. It's going to give us another error. Now it's coming up with the automatic repair. Let's do advanced options this time. Troubleshoot. Advanced options. Let's see what we have under startup settings. This will launch it in safe mode. Let's just do that. Enable safe mode. The other reason I'd like to rebuild this is you can see how long it's taking to boot. And it took even longer when you had the RAID array in there because it had to configure that at boot up. And we go back to time. What's my time worth? And every time I have to work on it, I have to continue to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. Interesting, I got an inaccessible boot device in safe mode. I wasn't expecting that to happen at all. I'm going to hit F8 a bunch of times now. I want the Windows startup menu to appear. Well, it gives me boot up options. It's not what I wanted. Back around in a circle. I've found that Windows 10 oftentimes fixes this problem on its own if you reboot it a couple of times. I guess because I'm filming live now, it wants to make a liar out of me. Back to advanced options, troubleshoot, advanced. Let's do startup repair, which I think is what it already did. And it comes back and says, I don't see any problem. Okay, well, now it's running check disk, which is hopefully not going to take, it says it can take over an hour. I hope it doesn't take that long. But that is the gist of the inaccessible boot device. I'm kind of happy that that happened so that you guys can see that it doesn't mean you have to reinstall your operating system. It's completely repairable. Whether or not I have that much time in this live video to show you that full repair doesn't, I mean, if this is going to take over an hour, there's no way I'm going to just have you guys stare at this for an hour. Says it's attempting repairs. That's a good sign. So it's already moved on from the check disk. Having an SSD certainly, I'm sure, played a role in why that happened so quickly. Still says attempting repairs. What I will end up doing off camera is I'll hook up the rest of these USB ports once I get this up and running. Try and see if I can get this up and running before I end the live stream. And then after the live stream, I'll clean up the cabling a bit, hook the fans up. I'm going to use a hot melt glue gun, as I mentioned, to glue this back down. And then the panels go back on it and drop it back off to the customer and say, good luck. That's the best I can do. Otherwise, it just continues to sit here and get in my way. Or as I mentioned, sit in my office and get in my way there. So I want it out. All right, how are we doing up here? Still attempting repairs. I can't see the chat because I'm using the monitor right now. And even if I could see the chat, I can't type to you because I'm using the keyboard and mouse right now on this rig. So bear with me and enjoy the feed. Sorry I can't participate in it at the same time. Eventually, the plan will be to have a machine dedicated for the live stuff. And that I don't have to keep changing the configurations around, and hopefully I'll get somebody to be an administrator while I'm working. They can be monitoring the chat and taking care of any misbehavior. And we'll get it all sorted out soon. Couple more months, I think it'll all be good to go. Still have attempting repairs. Dusty. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting hungry for dinner, so this thing better wrap it up pretty soon. There's nothing worse than being a technician who is stuck on site at a customer's location, having to wait and twiddle your thumbs for something like this to complete. That's why I prefer to take a lot of work, take it out of the place of business, or take it out of the if it's a residential client, take it out of their home, so that they're not looking over your shoulder, watching everything you do and asking you a bunch of questions, which distracts from the focus of diagnosing. And at the same time, I don't have to bill them by the hour because, well, this is doing this, I can go do something else. I can work on several computers at the same time. If I'm trapped in somebody's home or business, I have to bill them by the hour. And then you've got to start asking yourself, after a certain amount of time passes, is my hourly rate going to be more than this computer is going to cost to replace? And that is a part of the reality that techs have to deal with all the time. Just looking at the way this back plate is, it's interesting. It bends. Well, I know I didn't put it on backwards. I'm talking about the CPU heatsink backplate there, the way it's, usually they're straight. This one actually bends in the corners. I guess that's how Intel designed it. I think I've only seen 2 or 3 Intel heatsinks like that in the entire time I've been in business. Or at least to the level that I've had to take them off and actually, notice things like that. On a computer where I wouldn't take it off, I probably wouldn't even notice that bracket bending in the corners like that. Interesting. Still attempting repairs. Ugh, it's taking forever. I like to check, make sure the DVD drive works. When I bring a computer back to a customer, I like to check all the front ports, make sure all the lights are working, especially on a new build, because that's really embarrassing if you just built something brand new and it's not right out of the box. And certainly when I do a repair, I want to make sure that I'm not called back for something silly where I have to drive 30 miles because I plugged a cable in upside down and now the power light doesn't work. Or maybe the front port audio connector wasn't on all the way and now their front port audio doesn't work, and you got to go all the way back out there to push a connector in. And it happens. So the more time you spend just double checking everything while you can, the less likely you'll be called back. And that's also a benefit for the customer, because if you've got to get called back, it sort of lowers their confidence in your abilities. Not to mention what it's costing you in your time and gas to go and fix something that's really, really simple and should never have been a problem to begin with. So there's a balance between speed and accuracy. You don't want to take forever to get something fixed, and especially if you've taken forever that it's not fixed right. And on the other hand, you don't want to rush it through so fast that you fail to put all the screws back in or tighten them down or have all the connectors on properly or verify that everything's working. So by taking the time to verify that those things the customer is going to use work, you'll reduce the likelihood of getting that support call after the fact. Just like this memory card reader, it's in a little crooked. It's something somebody might complain about. I've already got the machine apart. How long is it going to take me to just take it apart and put a secure, put a screw in here to line it up properly? It's just going to take a couple minutes, versus 30 miles in the car is going to take about a half an hour each way to address that after I've delivered it. And again, after I've delivered it, I've got to work with the client breathing down the back of my neck, watching me the whole time. And they might have a very crowded desk, which is very difficult. So here I've got a big open space. It's easier to work on. The computer's up high. It's not down low. It's not sitting on the floor where I'm down on the floor trying to work on it. All of those things, if you're going to work on computers for a living, if you're going to be a technician, these are things to consider when a customer's asking you how much is this going to cost and how much time you really have to invest in it and whether or not it's worth fixing. And again, this is really where this computer became a dilemma for me, because, like I say, I would want to change the case. I want to go to a SATA 3 motherboard. That's going to require DDR4 memory instead of what he's got in here, which I think is DDR2. A more modern processor, a faster solid state drive, a newer storage drive instead of the RAID 0 array that they had. And when you're all said and done, you've just built a whole new computer. And ultimately, it probably would have taken me less time than how long this is taking me just to get this back up and running. So, how are we doing up there? Still nothing? Still nothing. Well, the feed, YouTube, sorry I'm walking around while I'm talking there. YouTube is going to cut my feed off after about 2.5 hours. And we've been going now for about 2 hours and 10 minutes or so. So I only have about 20 more, 15, 20 more minutes. If this hasn't moved, then I'm going to have to end the stream with it like this, and we'll just have to come back with it working, which I didn't really want to do. I wanted to show you how to fix that problem. And I did talk about this in one of the previous parts of this video. This is part 5. There are 4 previous parts that have led us to this point. And ultimately, as I mentioned, the customer has more or less abandoned it. I still talk to the customer, but about other things. We don't even talk about this. Startup repair. Startup couldn't repair your PC. Well, that's not what I want to see. Let's turn it back on, try it one more time. Safe mode should work. I'm wondering if maybe I hit the wrong option when that came up. I hit number 3, whatever number 3 was. I thought 3 was safe mode, but let's just see what it does this time. So again, it's the Core i7 980, which was a very, very, very expensive CPU when it was purchased brand new, back when it was basically, I think it was top of the line. I don't think you could get one any more powerful without going to Xeon, which probably would have been more appropriate for this customer anyway. But again, I wasn't any part of this build whatsoever. But it became my problem later, as you can tell. And of course, if you've seen my modern builds, we'd already be at the desktop by now in a modern build, which is better for the customer, it's better for the tech. So there's our error. Let's reset. Hopefully it'll give me the option to go to the menu again. So there's our preparing automatic repair again. So now you should start seeing the repetition. And again, if you do this every day as a tech, you don't even pay attention to it anymore. It's like, oh, there's that same message again. Nothing you really have to fear, nothing you have to be afraid of. It's information. Use that information to help you diagnose and ultimately fix the problem. Don't think, oh no, it can't be fixed. Everything can be fixed. All right, let's go to advanced options one more time. Back over to troubleshoot, back over to advanced again, back over to startup settings, and restart. And now I should be able to get the safe mode option. Now obviously I could go into the BIOS and I could change it out of AHCI mode and put it back into SATA mode. Oh, I see it. When I hit number 3, I hit enable low resolution mode. That's why I didn't boot right. Number 4 is safe mode. Let's go to number 4. I forgot what I was just talking about. As a computer technician, you'll be expected to be able to resolve thousands of different problems with all different kinds of hardware configurations and all different versions of operating systems. So whether it's Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, people have their smartphones, they want to know how to print from them, they want to know how to access their email from them or their tablets, and you'll be expected to know all of that. But again, Google is your friend in a lot of this. Here we're in safe mode now. You can see the much bigger icons. And now let's just restart normally. And I think this will fix the problem, just going into safe mode and exiting it. I think. This is how I recall fixing it before. So unless you're dealing with the same problems over and over and over again, it's hard to memorize all this stuff because there's so many different things that have to be fixed, so many different reasons customers call you. And this one hasn't happened very often to me, so it hasn't been drilled into my brain yet. And hopefully it never will need to be. So we're going in normal boot now. You'll see it doesn't have any text down here about, doing a repair or anything like that. And hopefully we get the desktop. Yes. So all I did to fix the inaccessible boot device was boot in safe mode and then restart the computer again out of safe mode. And that automatically fixed loading the AHCI driver instead of the SATA driver, which is why you got the inaccessible boot device due to the BIOS resetting. Now the good news is that the BIOS has not reset during this whole process that I've been doing here. But that doesn't mean the problem's fixed. I could leave the computer on for a couple days, but honestly I've got so much to do, I don't have any place to do that. So it's just going to go back to the customer and they can call me if it happens again. Again, it's more important to me that I get it out of here. It's been here 4 months. That's 3 months too long. And that's going to wrap up this video tonight. Well, it's too dark to film. I'll get the USB hooked up. I'll get this glued. I was going to show all that, but I'm just running out of time. And then I'll get the covers put back on it. And like I said, I'm going to fix the crookedness here on the memory card reader. Verify that the memory card reader is going to work, verify all these connectors up here work, and then bring it back to the customer and wash my hands of it. And there you have it, another day in the life of, the thrilling life of a computer technician. Exciting, isn't it? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the live feed. I'll be going live again, what's today, Thursday? Will I be going live tomorrow? I won't be going live tomorrow, I don't think. Maybe over the weekend. I'm not sure yet. So watch the feed, watch your emails. If you want to know the next time I'm going live, make sure that you're subscribed, and there's a little bell next to the subscribe. Even if you are subscribed, you should still click that little bell, because many people, for whatever reason, YouTube has unchecked. There's a little box you have to check to receive an email notification the minute a new video is posted or a video goes live from the channel you're subscribing to. And it's always good to double check to make sure, if that matters to you, that you click on that little bell, and if that box is not checked, give it a check. And then that way you'll be one of the first to know when a new video goes up or a new video goes live. So with that, that's going to wrap up today, Thursday, what is it, June 15th. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. You know what? I can't shut my feed off. I gotta hook my monitor back up, so I guess you're gonna stay with me for a few more minutes while I do that. This is a TeamViewer error message that pops up because I don't have any internet plugged in. I don't have any internet access on this computer right now. So now everything's working. Let me go ahead and shut it down, and then I can move this back over so I can stop my feed. That's a funny problem. It was a really good ending though, wasn't it? I mean, I thought I wrapped it up pretty nicely. Right up until the point that I realized I couldn't shut it off, I was doing good. All right, let's go here. this back over here. There we go. Keyboard and mouse. Carrie, do you need a loaner monitor until payday? No, actually, I've got a big 40-inch TV I'm going to eventually hook up as my monitor for the chat. And then this little monitor that you see me moving back and forth, that's always going to be my bench monitor. So I have plenty of monitors. I just don't have all the cables and wiring necessary to get everything hooked up. And I need to get the customers taken care of first. So for now, we're just kind of MacGyvering it, trying to make it work with what I've got. And kind of lucky it's even this good, because a year ago I'd have told you I wasn't going to do this, and now here I am doing it. So it's become a lot easier, and there's less editing work for me to do, and it's very, very honest. You know, you're seeing everything honestly, which is very important to me. Anyway, thank you all for watching. We have, wow, almost 400 people watching. I hate to say goodbye to all of you, but I have to go. Running out of time, but thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Until then, bye for now.